addressed the fact that people were allowed to bring their drugs for safe injection under supervision there. And, Mr. Speaker, my riding won't have any because this law won't allow, I don't think, in the real world, any such facilities to be licensed.
The time for government orders and for the member for Victoria has expired. Statements by members. Déclaration de député. L'honorable.
The honourable member for Lotbinière-Chutes de la Chaudière. Mr. Speaker, on March 17th, several countries like Canada, United States and France will be paying tribute to Irish immigrants by celebrating with them their national celebration and the fact that they are immigrants of Irish descent. St. Patrick's is a popular celebration organized in the streets in Ireland, but also celebrated throughout pubs in large cities. For young and old alike, it's always fun to see leprechauns, these little people running around with tall hats and clover, or to see so many people dressed in green with Irish flags on their cheeks. On March 17th, I invite you to do as I will in my riding and retrace Irish history through their folklore and cultural references and to celebrate Irish friends and loved ones. It's a great opportunity. Don't miss it. The Honourable Member for Shefford. Mr. Speaker, founded in 1963, Polyform is the largest manufacturer of expanded cellular plastic in Quebec. In 2012, the company created its own recycling facility that can process a wide variety of plastic substances. And each year, Polyform continues to invest and develop in technology that enables it to increase its recycling capacity. Today, it recycles no less than 5 million kilograms of plastic of all kinds. On March 2nd, at the EPS Expo 2015 event in Indianapolis, Polyform received the prize for excellence in recycling of expanded polystyrene. It's the second prize that they have won since the start of 2015. Let's congratulate Polyform for their awards and also their environmental involvement.
For Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, Nowruz, the Persian New Year, is fast approaching. This is a very important celebration in my riding of Richmond Hill, which is home to one of the largest, most dynamic Persian communities in Canada. Festivities of all kinds are taking place, from elegant Nowruz galas to the hustle and bustle of the Nowruz bazaars, to the thrilling fire festival at Richmond Green. Richmond Hill has it all, Mr. Speaker. This is also a time to celebrate the rich culture of the Persian people and the extraordinary contributions they have made and continue to make to our great country, including, of course, to the great town of Richmond Hill. Their remarkable talents and expertise include those within business, academia, medicine, science, the arts and culture, to name but a few, Mr. Speaker. I am proud to call so many Persian Canadians my friends. I wish them all, celebrating across Canada, a very happy Nowruz. Nowruzatan Piruz.
L'honorable député de Bourassa.
The honourable member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to rise today to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Montreal North. Montreal North is located in Bourassa, the riding that I have the honour of representing here in Parliament. Montreal North is also where I spent the first 10 years of my life in Canada. It's where I completed my high school at the Henri Bourassa High School. I have excellent memories of those wonderful years. Montreal North also adopted a slogan that I'm proud of. On vient de partout, on se sent chez nous. We come from everywhere, but we feel at home. Montreal North has warmly welcomed people from everywhere. It's rich in its diversity. Is that not diversity? Is that not what Canada is about? Allow me to thank the people who've contributed to this celebration. Elected officials like Mayor Gilles Deguerre, members of the Montreal North 2015 board, and the chairman, Claude Poirier, Sister Angèle, Mr. Oliver Jones, and all of the volunteers.
Member for Palliser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I am proud to rise today to extend warm congratulations to Team Canada on winning their second straight Tim Hortons Brier victory. After a slow start at the Brier, the foursome switched up the roles and moved Moose Jaw native Pat Simmons up to skip. They never looked back after the switch. The team was rounded out by John Morris, Carter Rycroft, and Nolan Thiessen. Simons, who shot 93% in the final, was named winner of the HoC Gervais Award as the most valuable player in the playoffs. I'm also proud to offer congratulations to Saskatchewan, Steve Laycock, and his bronze medal victory over Brad Gouchy's team. Finally, I hope all members will join me in wishing Team Canada well at the Ford World Men Curling Championship beginning at the end of this month in Halifax. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are facing a retirement security crisis. The Conservatives have blocked attempts to make retirement more secure for Canadians. Canada Pension Plan is proven and reliable, yet the Conservatives have broken their promise to strengthen it for future generations of Canadians. The Conservatives have raised the age of retirement from 65 to 67. Private pension plans and the workers who own them must take a back seat during bankruptcy proceedings. The Conservatives who want to make it easier for employers to change secure defined benefit pension plans to risky targeted benefit plans. And younger Canadians today are financially squeezed between having to care for their aging parents and raising their own children. Canadians want the government to act, and New Democrats are ready. We will secure and enhance CPP, restore the retirement age, 65, help make the workplace pensions of Canadians more secure, will help lift seniors out of poverty, and will help our young people prepare for their own retirement. Mr. Speaker, all Canadians deserve a secure and dignified retirement, and a New Democratic government will take action to ensure that each and every Canadian has just that.
L'honorable député
The honourable member for Ottawa Orleans.
The wearing of the burqa and the niqab has been the subject of polarized debate. Le port de signes et de vêtements religieux dans
The wearing of religious symbols and clothing in public sphere is appropriate under all but a few specific circumstances.
citizenship card or a passport are some of these circumstances, the latter requiring that citizens even remove their glasses for their photo. As well, everyone's face should be uncovered during the course of a citizenship ceremony and while he or she is voting. Le gros bon sens.
Basic common sense dictates a person needs to allow visual identification by the public servant dealing with the issue. If a woman refuses to uncover her face because the official in front of her happens to be male, we should try to accommodate her by having a designated female public servant available to step in.
That does not cover the face should be allowed to testify in court. Mr. Speaker, reasonable Canadians will debate this topic in a measured and respectful manner.
The honourable member for Whitby, Oshawa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in the House today to honour the life and exceptional career of a Whitby, Oshawa resident who recently passed away. Margaret Kenley, a Second World War veteran, joined the Women's Royal Canadian Naval Service in 1943 when she was just 18 years old. She served as the leading Wren and was stationed in Halifax until her return back home in 1946. Following her discharge, Margaret became a member of the Ladies' Auxiliary to the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 112. She also served the Legion as treasurer and the first female president, and in 1988 was made a lifetime member. Mr. Speaker, I know all members of the House will join me in sending our heartfelt condolences to Margaret's family, and we would like them to know that we're forever grateful for her service to our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Charbonne-Saint-Charles.
The honourable member for Charbonne-Saint-Charles. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As a official opposition critic for Francophonie, I rise today to invite all Canadians to celebrate the International Francophonie Day, which is held on March 20th every year. It's a celebration for the 275 million French-speaking people located on 5 continents. This magnificent language, the 5th most widely spoken in the world, gives us great power and means to draw and create strong links throughout the world. We have great responsibility towards this language. We need to say so and to speak it in order to preserve it. By being franco-responsable, we can commit clearly to promoting French in all its shapes. We know that our language is the beauty of our history, our traditions, our culture, and our future. Therefore, we need to showcase it. Let's celebrate International Francophonie Day together.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to commemorate the Halubcha massacre, also known as Bloody Friday. March 16 marks 27 years since the brutal chemical weapons attack perpetrated by Saddam Hussein regime on Kurdish civilians that killed as much as 5,000 innocent people and injured almost 10,000 more. Kurdish Canadians will be gathering across the country over the next week to remember this horrific crime against humanity and its victims. As we reflect on what took place at Halubcha, we also recognize the determination of the Kurdish people who are today facing off against ISIL in northern Iraq. Kurdish forces have played a crucial role in protecting civilians and religious minorities from ISIL. Canada is proud to be advising and assisting our Kurdish allies as they combat this genocidal death cult, and we stand with them and Kurdish Canadians in commemorating the Halubcha massacre. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'honorable député de Saint.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, as a woman and a member of a visible minority, I'm familiar with the damage that intolerance causes, regardless of where it comes from. It's a type of violence that I condemn without reservations. It's with a great deal of emotion that I rise today to draw attention to the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination, which will take place on March 21st. It will be an opportunity to acknowledge the contributions made by all cultural communities from all horizons to the building of Canada. At a time when the government is playing with the fears of Canadians for election purposes, I want to remind them of the essential role to be played by responsible policies and elected officials in fighting racism, discrimination, xenophobia, and intolerance. The comments that we've heard recently from the other side of the House are unacceptable. Racism has no place in our statements. I strongly believe in the values of love, openness, and freedom, which are the values held dearly by all Canadians. With these values, we can fight discrimination in our society, help all integrate, and together build a Canada that resembles us, a Canada that brings us together.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough Centre.
Since 2006, our government has introduced more than 30 tough-on-crime measures. Through these measures, we have made significant accomplishments in 3 key areas: tackling crime by holding violent criminals accountable for those crimes, giving victims of crime a stronger voice, and increasing the efficiency of the justice system. As promised in the 2013 speech from the throne, this week we further built upon this success with the introduction of the Life Means Life Act. This legislation will ensure that those convicted of the most heinous murders will breathe their last breath behind bars. Providing for life sentences without parole is essential to express society's denunciation of the worst criminals. Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that our government will always put the rights of victims before the rights of criminals.
The Honourable Member for Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There are saints who live amongst us. The 2015 Templeton Prize has been awarded to a man of deep faith, Jean Vanier, the son of our 19th Governor-General, Georges Vanier. Jean Vanier was called to found l'Arche, now a federation of 147 communities in 35 countries where people with and without disabilities, intellectual disabilities, live and work together as peers, and all are transformed by the encounter. Vanier co-founded Earth, Faith and Light, 1,500 groups in 82 countries supporting the intellectually disabled, their families and friends. Everywhere in the world, Mr. Speaker, we live with brothers and sisters who have intellectual disabilities. To really meet them and become friends is also becoming open, in Vanier's words, to love people, to respect them deeply, to live authentic relationships with others, to yearn for truth and justice in the huge family of humanity. Mr. Speaker, today let us celebrate the saints who live amongst us.
The Honourable Member for the Yukon.
Mr. Speaker, the Retirement Income Security Benefit announced on Monday will provide financial stability for veterans who are moderately to seriously injured and to their families. But our Conservative government isn't stopping there. Earlier today, the Minister of Veterans Affairs announced strengthened benefits for Canada's part-time reserve force veterans to ensure that they have the support that they deserve. These important improvements will ensure that the earning loss benefit is calculated in the exact same way for reserve force veterans as it is for regular force veterans. We're placing the highest priority on making sure that veterans and their families have the support and services that they need when they need them. Mr. Speaker, today's action is more evidence that our Conservative government is committing to ensuring that our veterans and their families receive and are treated with the care, compassion, and respect that they deserve. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well done.
The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, in a democracy, debating ideas and bills is healthy, even if the various parties don't necessarily share the same ideas. But normally, ethics should be a common concept. We owe that to Canadians. In the past, all the Conservatives could huff and puff about was changing ethics when they came to power. They've had a really bad week in this regard. We can't keep track for the number of people in PMO who have to testify at the Duffy trial. Former Minister of Public Works was found guilty of favoritism and a conflict of interest. And now Nigel Wright and the Conservatives, we've learned, are penalizing people in Maniwaki because they got rid of Lawrence Cannon in the last election. And now this week we've learned that the RCMP is seeking information on 150 fraudulent bills submitted by Conservative Senator Pamela Wallin. Mr. Speaker, we can hardly blame Canadians to be eager to have an opportunity to vote in the fall. They'll have an opportunity to give themselves a progressive government that will look in after all of their interests.
For Newmarket, Aurora.
Season approaches, constituents in Newmarket, Aurora have been overwhelmingly supportive of the tax-free savings account. The Canadian Association of Retired Persons agreed that the tax-free savings account is extremely important for seniors. This is another example of how our government is helping seniors, middle-class families, and indeed, all Canadians. Unlike the Liberal leader, they cannot rely on their trust fund to pay for their retirement or their kids' education. The Liberal leader wants Canadians to pay more tax, and the NDP voted against the tax-free savings account. Overall, 11 million Canadians of all ages and all income levels have opened an account, allowing them to save tax-free for their own priorities. Mr. Speaker, our Conservative government is fulfilling our promise to keep taxes low, and we will continue to do so while putting more money back in the pockets of families.
Question orale, oral questions. The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Media that the individual who was detained for allegedly helping 3 British schoolgirls join ISIS was working for the Canadian Embassy in Jordan, where Bruno Sacomani, the former head of the Prime Minister's security detail, is the ambassador. Can the government confirm that someone linked to Canadian intelligence, either an employee, an agent, or an asset, is being detained in Turkey?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank the Honourable Member for that question. Yes, we are aware of some of these reports. However, I cannot comment on matters of operational matters of national security. But what I would like to remind this House is that the threat of terrorism, the international jihadi movement against Canada, is real. We just have to look in the news. Day after day, we're hearing of more instances of people who have allegedly left Canada to join ISIL, to fight for the ISIL beliefs. And, Mr. Speaker, Canadians know that it is this government that is bringing forward legislation to better protect Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Mr. Speaker, last night's committee testimony underlined that the sweeping changes Conservatives have put forward in C-51 are excessive, unnecessary, and dangerous to our freedoms. But what really stood out last night was the disrespect shown to a witness. The member for Calgary Nose Hill suggested that the National Council of Canadian Muslims had ties to, quote, Islamic terrorist groups, and that they were, in her words, half-hearted in the fight against terrorism. Will the member apologize for her disgraceful behaviour?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The international jihadist movement has declared war on Canada and its allies. Countries like Canada that believe in openness and tolerance. We again see this again and again in the news. We've seen recent attacks here in Canada, Paris, in Copenhagen and in Australia. But let me talk about the reasons why we brought forward C-51. Our national security agencies have identified serious gaps in the existing legislation that they need to better protect Canadians. That is what this government is doing. We brought forward common sense measures, and I certainly hope that the NDP will eventually get on our side.
The Honourable Member for Halifax.
Ronald Atke, a former Conservative minister and former president of the Security Intelligence Review Committee, was clear. Allowing CSIS to go before a judge to ask to violate the Charter of Rights and Freedoms will turn into a, quote, constitutional mess. Why does the government want to pass this bill so quickly, a bill that is clearly ill-conceived?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday we heard from a number of witnesses. It was the first day or second day of a testimony. First day, of course, was on Tuesday with both Ministers of Public Safety and the Minister of Justice appearing. We look forward to continued debate and information coming from all sides and views of this. But, Mr. Speaker, when I talk about the gaps that have been identified by our national security agencies, it was very clear when Commissioner Paulson said that it would also be very helpful in respect of those people who we don't know anything about. He was referring to the information sharing aspects of this particular bill. We've brought forward these common sense measures, and I certainly hope the opposition parties will get on board.
The Honourable Member for Burnaby, New Westminster.
It's very strange, Mr. Speaker. The bill is becoming more and more controversial, but they're not willing to accept any amendments. Canadians deserve better. Economists from the private sector have said this week that the government has no reason to delay tabling a budget. While the Conservatives hum and haw, Canadians are losing their jobs. Once again this morning, we learned that the unemployment rate went up by 2 points in February. That means 50,000 more unemployed Canadians. What is the government waiting for to table a budget to stimulate job growth?
The Honourable Minister of State for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, our government is lowering taxes. We're bringing forward measures that help create new jobs. The Liberals and the New Democratic Party are pushing a high-tax, high-debt agenda that will threaten jobs. The New Democratic Party is pushing a $21 billion carbon tax, and that would hurt our economy and kill Canadian jobs. Mr. Speaker, we know that monthly job numbers can be volatile, but what's more important is the long-term trend. And, Mr. Speaker, since the recession, we've created 1.2 million net new jobs. Mr. Speaker, they are overwhelmingly full-time jobs in the private sector.
Honourable Member for Burnaby, New Westminster.
Here's the long-term trend, Mr. Speaker. Conservatives have lost more than 400,000 full-time family-sustaining manufacturing jobs, and they have the worst record for good job creation in a generation, Mr. Speaker. Canadians deserve better than Conservative policies. Now, unemployment jumped by more than 50,000 Canadians last month, and we saw 29,000 private sector jobs disappear. Far too many Canadians either lost their job or fear that their job will be the next to go. When will Conservatives admit they've messed things up, and when will they finally introduce a budget that puts good jobs first?
The Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, the NDP and Liberals propose one job measure, that is, their tax increases. They believe that the only way to create jobs is to, in their words, increase taxes on families and on job creators. We have the opposite approach. We have a low-tax plan for jobs and growth. It has created 1.2 million net new jobs. 85% of them are full-time, 80% in the private sector, 2/3 in high-wage industries. We'll continue to ensure taxes go down so that job creation goes up.
The Honourable Member for Kings Hants.
Mr. Speaker, the problem is that the job creation is actually going down. The Canadian economy lost 29,000 private sector jobs last month. Alberta lost 14,000 jobs. Private sector economists have warned us that low oil prices and slow growth will be with us throughout 2015 and that there's no reason to delay the budget. Right. We need a budget now with a plan for jobs and growth. Why is the Finance Minister dithering and delaying?
The Honourable Minister of State for Finance.
Mr. Speaker, our government has a low-tax plan for jobs and growth for all sectors of the Canadian economy. And that plan is working, Mr. Speaker. That plan will bring Canada to a balanced budget in 2015-16. As we have stated, we will not bring forward the budget any earlier than April. While we're focusing on balancing the budget and creating jobs, the Liberal leader is pushing through a high-spend, high-tax plan, Mr. Speaker, that will see working families hurt, that will see unemployment unemployment rise. Mr. Speaker, we continue to look for ways that we can put money into the pockets of Canadians. Canadians know they're better off with this Conservative government.
The honourable member for Kings Hands.
Mr. Speaker, today's job report also shows that there are fewer jobs for young Canadians. In fact, there's 160,000 fewer jobs for young Canadians than in 2008. Meanwhile, Canada's just set another new record for high levels of household debt. There's a connection between household debt and a weak jobs market for youth in Canada. Middle-class parents are taking on extra debt in order to help their adult children make ends meet. When will the Conservatives actually understand the real challenges faced by middle-class families, and when will they give them a real plan for jobs and growth?
The Honourable Minister of State for Finance.
Well, Mr. Speaker, again, it's a bit rich, that question coming from the member. It brings to mind the following quote, and I do quote, "It took 9 years of Conservative government to undo many of the counterproductive interventionist policies of the Liberal government, which had effectively rendered the Canadian economy incapable of moving forward." Mr. Speaker, I agree with that quote. The same member that asked the question, the member from Kings Hands, is the one who issued that quote.
The honourable member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, today we learned that 50,000 more Canadians lost their jobs in February. At the same time, household debt has reached historic highs. On average, Canadians have $1.66 in debt for every dollar of disposable income. Middle-class families are suffering. They need help. Where is the plan? Where is the budget from the Conservatives? Where is the plan for jobs and growth in Canada, Mr. Speaker?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, middle-class Canadians know that they're better off with this Conservative government. Median net worth of Canadian families has risen by a whopping 45% since we were elected. And thanks to the leadership of our Prime Minister, for the first time in Canadian history, middle-income earners are better off than Americans. Mr. Speaker, the member also knows that the vast majority of benefits from our new family tax breaks will go to low and middle income Canadians. Mr. Speaker, Canadians know they're better off with this Conservative government.
The honourable member for Alfred Perrin. C-51 is going to have a major impact on the rights and freedoms of Canadians. The testimony heard yesterday at committee was very clear. According to experts like lawyer Paul Champ and Professor Craig Forsisi, C-51 will open the door to secret detention. And so it's not surprising that Canadians are mobilizing and that there are demonstrations planned against C-51 across Canada on Saturday. Will the government continue to ignore the concerns of Canadians?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Bill C-51 actually has 5 components to it. First one is information sharing. We have changes to the Passenger Protects program, which will allow the airlines to stop people from actually boarding planes and traveling overseas. Of course, there's areas with regards to lowering the threshold tools that law enforcement have been calling upon. In fact, we actually heard in committee that the Commissioner Paulson of the RCMP felt that these tools that we are providing to our national security agencies are extremely helpful and will actually fill the gaps that have been identified by those very same agencies.
The honourable member for Alfred Perrin. Even the witnesses who, in theory, should be favorable to the Conservatives have brought up major problems with C-51. Ron Atke, a former Conservative minister and the first president of the Security Intelligence Review Committee, said yesterday before committee it would be unjust to give CSIS powers to disrupt in Canada or internationally with a surveillance system from the past, a monitoring system from the past. Why are Conservatives turning a deaf ear to Canadians?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. There is nothing greater of a priority to this government than the safety and security of Canadians. The national security agencies, the RCMP and CSIS, have identified gaps in our current legislation. C-51 brings those common sense measures. We actually heard from witnesses as well yesterday that we're in a new era of terrorism, that the threat is evolving, and we need to modernize the tools that we have for our law enforcement and national security agencies. That is precisely what C-51 is doing, and I wish for once that the NDP would actually support a common sense measure to tackle terrorism.
The honourable member for Esquimalt-Montefiore.
Well, Mr. Speaker, speaking of common sense, we've had 12 witnesses appear before the Public Safety Committee this week. Witnesses from a wide variety of backgrounds and perspectives, and every single one of them has highlighted serious problems with Bill C-51. This bill is so bad, Canadians in over 50 towns and cities across the country will be rallying against it this Saturday. Just like the experts at committee, they are saying this bill is excessive, unnecessary, and dangerous to our freedoms. Why won't the Minister of Public Safety or the Minister of Justice, why won't anyone over there start listening to Canadians and pull back on this bill?
Hear, hear. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was actually very pleased to see that the Chief of the Assembly of First Nations appeared in committee yesterday. He had some concerns, and I was very pleased to be able to respond to those concerns and explain how this actual bill will work with regards to information sharing. Most people across Canada believe that if one branch of government comes across information pertinent to the national security of this country and the safety and security of our citizens, that that branch of government should be able to relay that information to our national security agencies. That is precisely what Bill C-51, and I was pleased to be able to answer those concerns.
The honourable member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, this week we heard that the current Minister of Public Works passed over 160 proposals to fund one from a Conservative insider. What kind of message is the Minister sending about this government? When a community organization applies for a grant to the Government of Canada, they shouldn't feel the need to do favours for the Conservative Party. They should be able to trust that the proposal will be considered fairly based on its merits. Why did she pick this project in Markham ahead of all the others?
The Honourable Minister of Public Works.
Mr. Speaker, I always believed that this particular project to improve accessibility for handicapped people in the Markham Centre was worthy, and it was in the public interest. Mr. Speaker, we'll accept the guidance provided by the Commissioner to make sure that these grant programs are handled in a manner that's fair, that's accessible, and that's equitable for everyone involved.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Lambert. Mr. Speaker, since the devastating report from the Ethics Commissioner concerning favoritism from the Minister of Public Works and the Prime Minister's office, we've been trying to get explanations. The government claims that the minister acted of her own accord in good faith. However, 3 ministers and 2 close advisors of the Prime Minister intervened in favor of a good friend of the Prime Minister to overturn a decision taken by impartial bureaucrats. Can the Minister tell us if it's normal for 3 ministers and 2 close advisors of the Prime Minister's to interfere for such a small grant? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I always believed that this project to improve accessibility for persons with disabilities at the centre in Markham was a good project and in the public interest. Mr. Speaker, I accept the advice of the Commissioner to ensure that these grant programs are administered in an equitable and fair and effective way for all those involved. The Honourable Member for Compton-Stanstead. A couple of months ago, Agop Evereklian returned to the Conservative fold. This former Chief of Staff to Montreal Mayor Gérald Tremblay was convicted of fraud in 2005. His lack of judgment was further made clear when the Prime Minister himself had to twist his arm to cut ties with a questionable organization in the 2011 campaign. So how can the Minister responsible for the Economic Development Agency for the regions of Quebec accept that such an individual with such a checkered past be participating in handing out grants? Frankly. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Economic Development Agency of Canada is working with all the regions of Quebec for economic development, and I hope that my colleague is aware that we have helped projects in his own riding. The Honourable Member for Pontiac. According to ex-Conservative Senator Patrick Brazeau, the Minister of Public Works blocked a grant that had been promised by Lawrence Cannon to punish the voters of Pontiac who didn't vote properly. At the end of the day, it's the users of the Centre Jean Bosco, persons with disabilities who are trying to enter the labor market, who are the victims of this conservative pettiness. Will the Prime Minister finally explain the role that his Chief of Staff played in this issue?
The Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, with our Conservative government, Patrick Brazeau does not make decisions on grants. Meanwhile, the NDP want to listen to the advice of Patrick Brazeau when it comes to how to spend taxpayers' money. But that's not how it works on this side of the House. It's not surprising that the NDP and the Liberals will need to increase taxes if they want to say yes every time that Patrick Brazeau or anyone else asks them for a grant. The Honourable Member for Pontiac. And yet, Mr. Speaker, Senator Brazeau was so credible that they named him to the Senate. The director of the Centre Jean Bosco is disgusted by the conservative pettiness who are using public money to help their friends and punish their enemies. He says this is disgusting. We have a disabled clientele, and they're paying a heavy price. People shouldn't have to live with the consequences of such strategies. Will the Prime Minister explain why his Chief of Staff, Nigel Wright, interfered in this file? The Honourable Minister.
The application was rejected after both an internal and external review. We have to decide between projects all the time. What the NDP has just confirmed is that they believe that Patrick Brazeau should be in charge of grants and contributions, and maybe that's how they would run their government if they ever had the terrifying prospect of coming anywhere near taxpayers' money. But, Mr. Speaker, Canadians will never allow the NDP or the Liberals to do that because they know that they will only pay more taxes and face more debt if that were to ever happen.
The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Vic Tave's wife now denies that she took $1 million kickback from a First Nations chief who was directly involved with her husband, the senior minister for Manitoba. She says it was no more than 50 grand tops, as if that makes it okay. Actually, I know it's peanuts on the scale of conservative shenanigans, Mr. Speaker. Mulroney's parcel of rogues wouldn't even get out of bed for that kind of chunk change. But would the government not agree that it's time to tighten up on the post-employment rules for ministers and their spouse so that they can't exploit the time they spent in public office for personal and private gain?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. As you know, Mr. Speaker, this is a dispute between three individuals, none of which, of course, is the federal government. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to accountability, it's the NDP who owe Canadian taxpayers close to $5 million for illegal offices. That's $2.7 million, Mr. Speaker, for illegal offices, millions of dollars for illegal mailings, and they refuse to pay that money back. When it comes to accountability, they have nothing to talk about. They took illegal money from unions, Mr. Speaker. They've illegally taken money from Canadian taxpayers, and now are refusing to even pay it back.
Stole money. The Honourable Member for Bonavista Gander, Grand Falls, Windsor.
Mr. Speaker, since 2011, 70% of funding under the Enabling Accessibility Fund has been spent in Conservative ridings. Conservatives have been using a program designed to help those with disabilities as a political slush fund to reward their friends. If that is not bad enough, now the Prime Minister himself ensured that a failed application was put on top of the pile, fast-tracked, and given over $1 million. It's like Duffy all over again. So there is one word for this bad behavior. It's called corruption. How can he defend it?
The Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Speaker, the reason that we created the Enabling Accessibility Fund is to help people with disabilities have the same access to community centres, churches, synagogues, mosques, and recreational centres as every other Canadian enjoys. And that's why we've been proud to fund wheelchair ramps, special elevators, and a whole host of other projects that help our disabled people across the country. We've also brought in the Registered Disability Savings Fund so that parents can set aside money for their disabled children's futures, and I'm happy to say that both of those programs have been an enormous success.
The Honourable Member for Charlottetown.
Mr. Speaker, this week we heard the racist views of the member for New Brunswick Southwest on the economic role of, and I quote, whiteys and brown people. The member spewing this racism is the Prime Minister's former Director of Communications. Will the Prime Minister do the right thing and kick him out of the Conservative caucus, or is there a place for racism within this government?
The Honourable Minister of State.
Mr. Speaker, that member has apologized, but who has not apologized is the Liberal leader for his comments earlier this week, where in fact Brain Birth Canada has said that regarding his speech that such language is divisive and only does a disservice to Canadians interested in dealing with pressing issues of the day. Mr. Speaker, when will the leader of the Liberal Party stand up and apologize for his comments earlier this week?
The Honourable Member for Charlottetown.
So the standard of accountability within this government can be reduced to 140 characters on social media. Mr. Speaker, the member for New Brunswick Southwest has shared his racist views on suitable jobs for, and I quote, whiteys and brown people. This is not an isolated incident. This same member has also referred to First Nations as Canada's TP Republic. Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister remove this member from his caucus, or do Conservatives condone racism?
The Honourable Minister of State for Multiculturalism.
Mr. Speaker, that member has apologized, but we're still waiting for the apology from the Liberal leader for his comments earlier this week. Brain Birth Canada also says that regarding the Liberal leader, is the latest in a long line of politicians who fall in the trap of drawing highly inappropriate and offensive Nazi-era comparisons using the term none is too many haphazardly, Mr. Speaker. The Liberal leader should apologize for his speech given earlier this week.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Père-Boucher. Mr. Speaker, yesterday the CRTC announced that it was lowering quota on Canadian TV content during the daytime without taking into account the impact on TV viewers and artists. This highlights the Conservatives' inability to face up to the new digital reality in media. Already in 2011, the report sounded the alarm. Why did this government ignore the repeated testimony of the creators?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, Canada's television, film and digital media industry contributes nearly 125,000 jobs to the Canadian economy. That's why we proudly created the Canadian Media Fund in 2009 to help with the creation quality of Canadians for Canadians. Mr. Speaker, our government has worked tirelessly to better serve Canadians, bringing them greater consumer choice in television while protecting Canadian jobs. We've always been clear, Canadians should not have to pay for the channels they don't want. They should get the ones they choose.
Honourable Member for Longueuil-Père-Boucher. Unfortunately, that has nothing to do with what I said. By relaxing CanCon rules, the CRTC is sabotaging public policy that was put in place to support local creation. They're talking about jobs, we're talking about culture. This is a television that won't resemble Canadians. Is the minister aware that she needs to protect and foster our cultural sovereignty in Canada?
Mr. Speaker, the member is well aware of the rapidly changing media environment into which no industry is immune in our country. And we're carefully reviewing the decision, Mr. Speaker, but to come back to the main point, we created the Canadian Media Fund specifically to assist Canadians in the industry. And, Mr. Speaker, when you look at the 125,000 jobs that come out of that industry, it's because they understand, they know, they create, and they produce, and it's all with Canadian content, and it is for Canadians, and we should let them make the decisions in terms of how we drive forward in the industry.
The Honourable Member for Terrebonne-Blainville. There was another train derailment causing an oil spill, this time in Manitoba. This is on top of the 3 accidents in the space of 1 month in Northern Ontario. And this, while the Lac-Mégantic tragedy is still fresh in our memories. The government has told us that the tank cars that the TSB defines as not being sturdy enough will still be on our rails until 2023. How does the minister intend to reassure the public, given that we'll have to live for another 8 years with unsafe tank cars?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Transportation.
Mr. Speaker, I would have expected the member
to be excited about the news that there are solid new tank car standards in this country. They include thicker steel, they include top-fitting protection, better protection on the valve, and of course full head shields, Mr. Speaker, among other important features. That, Mr. Speaker, is a commitment. Those are proposed standards, obviously, and that's a commitment that we're moving forward on to ensure, among all of the measures we've taken to support rail safety, better oversight, more inspectors, Mr. Speaker, all those actions to ensure that Canadians remain safe.
The honourable member for Nickel Belt.
Mr. Speaker, it's been 6 days since the Gogama rail derailment. I visited the crash site and saw the horror of the devastation. The communities of Gogama and Matagami First Nations are very concerned about the environment and their safety. Citizens have been told that for trains with more than 20 cars, their speed will be reduced from 80 kilometers to 48 kilometers an hour from Cape Real to Hornpain. Can the minister confirm that the speed reduction will be permanent?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're obviously very concerned about the number of incidents that have taken place in the area of Gogama. We do not yet know the cause of the derailments, but expect that the company should and will fully cooperate with the Transportation Safety Board in its investigations. In the meantime, we continue, obviously, to take a number of very important actions to increase rail safety. We brought forward new legislation that I hope the member will support as it comes before this House, Mr. Speaker, that will hold railways to account and give inspectors the ability to actually order specific fixes on their problems, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Wellington Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, there have been reports in the media that the government is making changes to the benefits provided to reservists in the Canadian Forces. Can the government tell us exactly what those changes are?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Veterans.
Today's announcement is about respect for reservists.
With this announcement, part-time veterans of the reserve will receive the same level of income as the force veterans, thanks to the earnings loss benefit. Today, our response follows up on the recommendations of the Veterans Ombudsman and the committee. This news is additional evidence of our government's conservative government's engagement to ensure that veterans and their families are treated with care, compassion, and respect. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Delord.
Released the report on the temporary foreign worker program yesterday. Conservatives' data collection is a mess. We can't even get a simple answer to this question. Do employers really need to hire foreign workers, or are there local Canadians available to do the job? How could Conservatives mismanage a program so badly that there's no way of even telling if foreign workers are needed?
The Honourable Minister of Social Development.
Mr. Speaker, we have reformed the program to ensure that Canadians come first for Canadian jobs. We've required that employers sign an attestation that no Canadian will be either put out of work or out of hours if a temporary foreign worker is hired. We've required that employers do extra outreach to hire underemployed groups within the Canadian labor force, such as Aboriginals and new Canadians, young Canadians. And we've brought in tough new fines and even jail time for those who break these and other rules. We're working hard to create more jobs through lower taxes and ensuring that Canadians come first for those jobs.
The Honourable Member for Pierrefonds-Delord. Mr. Speaker, is the minister contradicting the report of the PBO? Because that report tells us clearly that they do not have the data they need to state such things. The Conservatives have mismanaged this program so badly that employers end up using the program for purposes other than its original purpose. Among other things, to fill low-paying positions and avoid recruiting local workers. Will the minister finally clean up this program and give the program the resources it needs to work? Honourable Minister, we have already put in place a reform to the TFW program, Mr. Speaker, which will ensure that Canadians have first crack at jobs here in Canada. The changes include an obligation on the part of the employer to show that no Canadian will be put out of hours if that person hires a temporary foreign worker. We have also put in place limits on the percentage of the work that can go to temporary foreign workers, and we will continue. The Honourable Member for Chicoutimi-Le-Fjord. In Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean and in other resource regions of Quebec, the forestry industry is in trouble. Demand is plummeting and jobs are threatened. We need to modernize the industry, but the Conservative government is not stepping up to the plate. Will the government renew the credits for R&D in the forestry industry and renew the envelope for forestry industry processing? Because we need $500 million, according to the Canadian Forestry Industry Association. Mr. Speaker, our support for the forestry sector is unprecedented. We have provided investments in training and modernization, but the NDP voted against that measure. Our accent on innovation, energy efficiency, and the expansion of markets has given remarkable results for the forestry industry.
For Thunder Bay, Rainy River.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The NDP has launched a study of the forestry sector at the Natural Resources Committee, one that is so important to so many communities in Northern Ontario and across the country. We've lost more than 100,000 forestry jobs under the Conservatives' watch. Many forestry towns are in crisis, but the government's support for industry transformation is drying up. Will the minister commit to ensuring there is new support for forestry in the upcoming budget?
And Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, we have and we will continue, and he'll continue to vote against it. Mr. Speaker, in northwestern Ontario alone, we have seen no less than 5 or 6 mills either open for the first time or reopen. People are getting jobs in this sector. Woodland operators are back to work. And all this member does, and the NDP members from Northern Ontario do, is vote against every single one of these initiatives. And people who work in the forest sector know that, and they're going to hold them accountable for it.
The Honourable Member for Halifax West.
Speaker, today we find out that Canadian veterans injured before 2006 will see their benefits clawed back under the government's new Retirement Income Security Benefits Plan. When the minister was asked if he would fix this problem, he reportedly said, quote, "We are not looking into that at this time," unquote. Will the government reverse this clawback and ensure no veteran loses a single penny under this new plan?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, this member's assertion is false. The Retirement Income Security Benefit will provide financial stability to veterans who are moderately to seriously injured and to their families. Our government will also streamline the multiple monthly financial benefits into a pension system for our most seriously injured veterans. I thank the Veterans Ombudsman and other veteran groups for their input on this issue that will provide security to veterans and to their families. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for St. Paul's.
The Military Complaints Commission found the military's investigation of the death of Corporal Longridge to be incompetent and lacking professionalism. His handling of this traumatic situation has been mired in secrecy and a 7-year ordeal for the family. The family's asked to see the entire Board of Inquiry report, but have been stonewalled. Instead, this week, they were provided with a selective partial report which blames the soldier and his family for this horrible tragedy. Will the government denounce these deplorable findings and commit to releasing the full report?
Parliamentary Secretary for National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, what happened in this case is completely unacceptable. The inclusion of these remarks in the Board of Inquiry is further evidence of how unacceptable it was. Our thoughts remain with the family of Corporal Stuart Langridge during this very difficult time. The Department of National Defence is reviewing the Military Police Complaints Commission's report, and we will want to make sure that we act upon those recommendations so that this never happens again. Hear, hear.
Honourable Member for Abitibi-Bay James, Nunavik. Mr. Speaker, yesterday I had the honour of debating my bill seeking to harmonise our legislation with the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives refused at the outset to seize this historic chance to ensure a real reconciliation. My question for the minister is simple. Does he share the opinion of his parliamentary secretary, who insinuated that the rights of Indigenous communities are incompatible with those of other Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
The Honourable Minister. I'm going to correct the member. The parliamentary secretary never said that. What the parliamentary secretary said, very simply, is that the bill of the honourable member would subject, Mr. Speaker, the will of Parliament to a veto to a group of Canadians, that is Aboriginal people, and that is completely contrary to the Canadian Constitution, and that is why we are not supporting his bill. Honourable Member for Abitibi-Bay James Nunavik.
Game. This parliamentarian should know that. This is the same shameful rhetoric they use when it comes to C-51. That was denounced yesterday by the National Chief, Perry Bellegarde. Let me quote, Mr. Speaker. First Nations know better than anyone how easy it is for government to ignore, to erode, and eradicate our most basic human rights and freedoms until you barely recognize the land you're living in. End of quote. Won't this government listen for once?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I was very pleased that the Chief of the Assembly of First Nations actually appeared at committee yesterday. It gave me an opportunity to respond to his concerns and to clarify the misconceptions that have been spread by the opposition parties. Let me be very clear. With regards to the Information Sharing Act, we actually, in the bill itself, we actually stress for greater certainty does not include lawful advocacy, protest, dissent, and artistic expression. This means that this is not included in this section for information sharing, but it also has to apply on the fact that it undermines the sovereignty, security, territorial integrity of Canada or the lives or the security of the people of Canada. Protests are not any of those.
The Honourable Member for Palliser.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while the Liberals and the NDP are focused on their carbon tax and their tax hike plan, our Conservative government is working on the economy and projects that will create jobs. The Prime Minister was in Saskatchewan to announce an important project for our economy. Can the Parliamentary Secretary update the House on this important announcement?
Well, Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my friend and my colleague from Palliser for all the hard work he's done for his constituents, not only in his own riding, but also Saskatchewan. Yesterday, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister was in Saskatchewan to announce a major infrastructure program of over $32 million for the twinning of Highway 7 to 4 lanes from Saskatoon west to Delisle. Now, Mr. Speaker, this project will not only create jobs, it will improve safety, it will enhance traffic flow, and, Mr. Speaker, it will reduce travel time. But unlike the NDP and the Liberals, whose only plan to improve the economy is to raise taxes, we are committed to lowering taxes, and that's why we launched the Building Canada Fund and approved to date over $5 billion worth of projects.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Mr. Speaker, the Income Tax Act is based on self-assessment, but this act is becoming more and more complex. The Conservatives have made it into an electioneering tool, and therefore it's ineffective. Given that the CRA itself recognizes that 44% of calls never get through, and that when they do get through, people are given misleading information, and that the letters that the CRA sends are illegible, Mr. Speaker, I am worried that seniors in particular are at a disadvantage. What does the minister intend to do to ensure that these people are treated fairly?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, to begin with, we encourage anyone who believes that they've received incorrect information from CRA to make a formal complaint. And we expect CRA to continuously improve the quality and the accuracy of the telephone services it provides, and we're implementing several measures to improve the quality of services offered by CRA.
The Honourable Member for Oxford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In our 2013 speech from the throne, our government promised to introduce legislation to make sure a life sentence means a sentence for life for those convicted of the most heinous murders. I am proud to say that this week we have delivered on yet another promise made to Canadians by introducing the Life Means Life Act. It is part of our government's commitment to returning Canada to a place where the severity of punishment meets the severity of the crime. Could the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Justice inform this House as to the effects of this legislation?
The Honourable
I'd
Parliament.
like to thank the Honourable Member for Oxford for that great question, and of course for his previous career and work as a police officer, keeping Canada's streets and communities a safer place for all Canadians. Mr. Speaker, Canadians do not believe that those convicted of the most heinous murders should have access to parole. This legislation would make that a reality. It will protect Canadians and our streets and communities by keeping the most dangerous offenders in custody for most of their natural lives. Importantly, this will do this by eliminating parole eligibility. It would ensure that those who have suffered loss or the tragedy of their loved ones will no longer have to revisit the horror of that tragedy through the ongoing paroles. Mr. Speaker, the Canadian justice system exists for Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Stanton Gulf Islands.
In question period, we heard the Parliamentary Secretary for Public Safety say that she was pleased to be able to, and I wrote this down as a quote, I was able to explain to him the way the Act works. She was referring to the National Chief of the Assembly of First Nations, who explained that C-51 must be withdrawn for violating First Nations rights under Section 35 of the Constitution. So my question is to the Minister of Aboriginal Affairs. Can he please undertake an educational program for members of his caucus to understand the notion of constitutionally enshrined rights that cannot be explained away by a parliamentary secretary?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Public Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the honourable member across the way already knows that all legislation is vetted through legal. We are very confident of the constitutionality of this piece of legislation. National security agencies have identified gaps in order to keep Canadians safe and to protect national security. That is what this bill is about. Enough with the hysteria from the NDP and from the Green Party. It's time to support measures that are in here that will protect Canadians and keep our borders safe.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the people from Lanaudière are not spared by the economic context. The Conservatives claim that they're making the economy a priority, but instead of investing in communities, they're spending billions of dollars on measures like income splitting that benefit the richest, but don't create a single job in Lanaudière. And in addition, Ottawa is even leaving funds for regional economic development unspent. What is the government waiting for to take real action to support workers and help the business people of Lanaudière to create jobs?
L'Honourable Secretary.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Agency of Economic Development Canada is working tirelessly with regions and with people across Quebec and Canada. There are projects that have been distributed across Quebec, and we will continue in that vein. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, every day, more and more citizens and municipalities of Lanaudière are opposed to Energy East. They refuse to shoulder the risks of an oil spill, and they don't want their only economic spin-offs to be the cost of cleaning up after a spill. Especially when we're talking about oil that even the President of the United States has called extraordinarily dirty. Why are the Conservatives, like the Liberals and the NDP, thinking that it's normal to force Quebecers to accept a pipeline that even the United States don't want?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, the opposition, we will not take a position before the review is terminated. It is the National Energy Board that will hear from people who are directly affected and who have relevant information or expertise in this area. We have been clear. Projects will be studied only if they are safe for Canadians and without danger to the environment. Thank you.
And thus endeth the question period. Tabling of documents, the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 36.8, I have the honour table in both official languages the government's responses to 22 petitions.
Introduction of government bills. Reports from interparliamentary delegations. Presenting reports from committees. The Honourable Member for Winnipeg Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I have the honour to present in both official languages the 8th report of the Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates in relation to its study of the Supplementary Estimate C 2014-2015. And if you'll permit me, Mr. Speaker, I'm proud to report that our committee, in keeping with our commitment to make a more thorough and robust examination of the supplementary estimates, undertook to study $730 million of the $733 million that were referred to the committee, which I think is, again, in keeping with what all committees should be undertaking to